Open your brokerage app, look at the top 10 stocks: Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia. It's a sea of American flags. This isn't luck, it's a mathematically engineered global wealth trap. While the world talks about US debt, these companies are busy collecting a tax from every human being on Earth. Today, I'm showing you the cold, predatory science of why the US index is the only logical place for your money. Welcome to Zero to Wealthy, and I'm Sean. Let's get real. Let's start with what I call digital feudalism. Forget the word tech for a moment. Apple, Google, and Microsoft are not tech companies, they are the digital landlords of planet Earth. Think about your day. You wake up in London, Seoul, or Sydney. You check an iPhone, you search on Google, you use Windows at work. In every one of those moments, you are paying a rent just to exist in the 21st century. Imagine a bridge that 8 billion people have to cross every single day. At the end of that bridge, there is a gatekeeper charging a toll. That is the S&P 500. They don't have to innovate every day. They just sit at the gate and watch the money roll in. Look at the margins. A car company might keep $5 out of every 100 they make, but Microsoft keeps 40, Visa keeps 50. Why? Because selling software to the next person costs them $0. You aren't investing in innovation, you're investing in the world's total inability to stop using these tools. It is a monopoly that hides in plain sight. When Apple gets hit with a $2 billion fine by a government, they don't blink. They generate that much cash in about 8 days. For these titans, a fine is just a license fee to keep the monopoly running. They own the pipes, they own the gate, and they own the land. But even this infrastructure is nothing without the brains behind it. The second reason is even more cold blooded. Let's talk about the talent vacuum. Think about how the world works. Countries like India, Korea, or Germany spend 20 years and billions of dollars to grow a genius. They pay for the schools, the healthcare, and the training. They do all the expensive work of growing the crop. And then, just when that genius is ready to be harvested, America walks in with a suitcase of cash and a green card. They don't pay for the 20 years of upbringing, they just take the finished product. Look at the founders of the biggest US companies. Elon Musk is South African, Jensen Huang is from Taiwan. The founders of Google and the CEOs of Microsoft and Adobe were all born outside the US. America isn't necessarily smarter, it is just a giant vacuum. It waits for the rest of the world to do the hard work, then it sucks up the top 0.1% of global intelligence to build products that the rest of the world then has to buy back. It is a parasitic cycle. As an investor, you have to ask yourself, do you want to put your money where the geniuses are leaving or where the geniuses are landing? Your bank account doesn't care about your feelings, and in this game, the vacuum always wins. Now, let's talk about the ultimate cheat code, the US dollar. Think of the global economy like a giant casino. You can have all the yen or euros you want, but if you want to buy oil or microchips, you have to use the casino's chips. And guess who owns the printing press for those chips? This is why the US gets away with things no other country can. When a normal country prints too much money, their economy crashes and their people starve. But when the US prints trillions of dollars, they don't suffer alone. Because the whole world is forced to use their chips to trade, that pain gets spread across everyone. When the Fed prints money, a guy buying bread in a different country pays for it through higher prices. The US is essentially exporting its inflation to you. It's an unfair, rigged system. But as an investor, you have to decide, do you want to be the guy playing against the house, or do you want to own a piece of the house? When you buy a US index ETF, you are buying a share of the house. And the house always wins because it's the only player at the table that can't go bankrupt as long as everyone else needs its chips to play. Now let's look at the fourth pillar, and it's the one that most people find incredibly boring until their portfolio gets wiped out in a foreign market scam. I'm talking about the legal iron dome. You see, the stock market isn't just about code and products, it's about contracts. It's about whether or not you actually own what you think you own. In the United States, the legal system is built to be a bodyguard for your capital. Now, let's be very clear. I am not saying American CEOs are more honest or moral than anyone else. Human greed is a universal constant. But in the US, the cost of getting caught is life ending. If a CEO lies to investors or fakes the accounting, they don't just get a slap on the wrist or a quiet retirement. They get a 150-year prison sentence. Look at Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman-Fried. The system is designed to be absolutely ruthless when it comes to protecting the integrity of the market. Why is this so important for your 25-year hold? Because when you invest in emerging markets, you are taking on political risk. You are betting that the government won't wake up tomorrow and decide that your favorite tech company now belongs to the state. You are betting that the majority owner won't just disappear with the cash. In the US index, you don't have to worry about that. The law is written by and for the people who own the stocks. And that leads us into the religion of shareholder capitalism. In Europe or Japan, companies often act like they are social institutions. They feel forced to keep thousands of employees they don't need, or they prioritize government goals over profit. But in the US index, a company has one job and one job only: to make you, the shareholder, as much money as humanly possible. This is where we see the magic of share buybacks. When a company like Apple or Meta has billions in extra cash, they don't just let it sit there. They go into the market, buy their own shares, and literally destroy them. This makes your remaining shares more rare and more expensive. It is a relentless machine that prioritizes your return over everything else. You aren't investing in a charity, you are investing in a legal and corporate system that treats your capital as a sacred object. If the house makes money, you make money. It is as simple as that. Now, for the final pillar, we've spent a lot of time in the digital world talking about software and currencies, but at the end of the day, the world is a physical place. Data centers need electricity, factories need fuel, and ships need safe oceans to travel across. This is where the US index has a hidden advantage that most people completely overlook. For the last 50 years, the biggest weakness of the American economy was its dependence on foreign oil. It was a hole in the armor. But then something happened that changed the global map forever: the shale revolution. Today, the United States is the largest producer of oil and gas on the planet. Think about what that means for the companies in your ETF. While factories in Europe are shutting down because they can't afford the price of energy, and while other nations are begging for supply, the US is sitting on a literal ocean of its own fuel. This energy independence is a massive invisible subsidy for every company in the S&P 500. It keeps their production costs lower and their supply chains more stable than any of their global competitors. It is a physical moat that no app can ever replicate. And if anyone tries to interfere with that energy or the global trade lanes that these companies rely on to survive, that is where the ultimate insurance policy comes in: the US Navy. There is an old saying on Wall Street: the dollar follows the fleet. The US military is the only force on earth capable of securing every major shipping lane simultaneously. They ensure that the semiconductors from Taiwan actually reach the factories in California, and that the finished products actually reach the customer's doorstep. When you buy a US index ETF, you are buying a stake in the only nation that is energy independent and possesses the military muscle to keep the global doors of commerce open. It's not about being a fan of the military, it's about recognizing that your portfolio has the most powerful bodyguard in human history. The NASDAQ doesn't just exist in the cloud, it is protected by steel and gunpowder. So let's be honest, is this system fair? Probably not. Is it a rigged game? In many ways, yes. But as an investor, your job isn't to fix the world, it's to navigate it. You can spend your life criticizing the great American vacuum, or you can choose to be a shareholder of the machine that runs it. In the global coliseum of wealth, you either fight the house or you own a piece of it. The choice is yours. I'm Sean, keep it real, and I'll see you in the next one.